Imagine a city struck by a bizarre affliction. People dancing uncontrollably day and night. This wasn't a joyous celebration, it was a terrifying epidemic. In the scorching summer of 1518, the city of Strasbourg fell prey to a mysterious illness that would become known as the Dancing Plague. It all began with a single woman, Frau Trophäa. She stepped into the street and began to dance. Her movements were erratic, almost frenzied. Days turned into nights, and Frau Trophäa continued to dance. Her body, fueled by some unknown force, showed no signs of stopping. Soon, others joined her, compelled by an invisible force. By the end of the week, over 30 people were caught in the throes of this strange mania. The streets of Strasbourg transformed into a stage of involuntary and chaotic movement. Imagine the sound of shuffling feet, labored breathing, and the murmur of a terrified populace. The Dancing Plague wasn't a mere spectacle, it was a terrifying ordeal for those afflicted. As days turned into weeks, the relentless dancing took its toll. Bodies, pushed to their absolute limits, began to collapse. Exhaustion, dehydration, and heart attacks became commonplace. Death, a grim specter, began to cast its shadow over the dancing throngs. The authorities were baffled, unsure of what measures to take against this bizarre enemy. What could possibly explain this bizarre phenomenon? Theories abounded, ranging from the supernatural to the scientific. Some whispered of divine wrath, a punishment for the sins of the city. Others pointed to demonic possession, a malevolent force taking control of the afflicted. One prevailing theory was ergot poisoning. Ergot, a fungus that grows on rye, can cause hallucinations and convulsions. Could contaminated bread have been the culprit behind the Dancing Plague? While ergot poisoning could explain some of the symptoms, it couldn't fully account for the sheer scale and duration of the outbreak. Another theory proposed was mass psychogenic illness, also known as mass hysteria. This phenomenon occurs when psychological stress manifests in physical symptoms, often within a group setting. The stressful conditions of the time, including famine and disease, could have created a breeding ground for mass hysteria. Imagine the fear, the uncertainty, the constant threat of death hanging over the city. Such conditions could easily push people to the brink of psychological collapse. However, mass hysteria typically subsides within a shorter period. The prolonged duration of the Dancing Plague, spanning over a month, made it a unique and perplexing case. Was it a perfect storm of social, environmental, and psychological factors? Or was there something more? Something we still don't understand at play? As the Dancing Plague tightened its grip on Strasbourg, the city's authorities grappled with the crisis. Physicians, baffled by the strange illness, were at a loss for a cure. Desperate times called for desperate measures. Religious processions were organized, prayers offered for divine intervention. The authorities, clinging to the hope that this was a spiritual affliction, even constructed a wooden stage and hired musicians. The reasoning was that if the afflicted were forced to dance, they would eventually exhaust the demonic forces within them. However, these efforts proved futile, the plague continuing its relentless course. The situation grew increasingly dire. The city's resources were stretched thin, the death toll rising with each passing day. The Dancing Plague, once a bizarre spectacle, had morphed into a full-blown crisis, threatening to tear the city apart. As weeks turned into months, the relentless energy of the Dancing Plague finally began to wane. The dancers, their bodies and minds utterly spent, slowly ceased their involuntary movements. The plague that had held the city captive began to recede, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a population scarred by the ordeal. The exact death toll remains uncertain, with estimates varying from a few dozen to hundreds. What is certain is that the Dancing Plague of 1518 left an undeniable mark on Strasbourg. The event was meticulously documented, etching itself into the city's historical memory. Chronicles, diaries, and even medical texts of the time recorded the bizarre events, ensuring that the tale of the Dancing Plague would live on. But beyond the historical records, the plague left an enduring impact on the social psyche of Strasbourg. The fear, the uncertainty, the sight of their neighbors driven to the brink of madness left an indelible mark on the survivors. The Dancing Plague served as a stark reminder of the fragility of human existence, the ever-present threat of the unknown. The event also highlighted the complex interplay between the mind and body, the power of belief and social influence. Even centuries later, the Dancing Plague of 1518 continues to fascinate and perplex, a chilling testament to the enduring power of the unexplained. Centuries after the events of 1518, the dancing plague remains an enigma, a historical puzzle that continues to fascinate and confound researchers. Modern science, with its advanced understanding of the human body and mind, offers a new perspective on the events of that fateful summer. While we may never know the definitive cause of the dancing plague, we can analyze the historical evidence through the lens of modern medicine and psychology. Ergot poisoning, once a leading contender, has been largely ruled out as the primary cause. The symptoms of ergotism, while similar in some respects, don't fully align with the prolonged and specific nature of the dancing plague. Mass psychogenic illness, on the other hand, holds a more plausible explanation. The social and environmental stressors present in Strasbourg at the time could have created a ripe environment for mass hysteria to take root. The power of suggestion, particularly within a climate of fear and uncertainty, can manifest in extraordinary ways. Imagine the impact of seeing your neighbors, your friends, even your family members succumbing to this inexplicable urge to dance. The fear, the pressure to conform could easily overwhelm rational thought, leading to a collective descent into madness.